Okay, ladies and gentlemen, something a little bit different today. We are going to do some suspension on this Genesis here. Currently on lowering springs, we're going to throw in some HSDs. And then we got some JunYan Taillights. Spice up the back end of the Jenny a little bit. Spicy taillights, spicy suspension. Okay guys, just giving you a quick comparison from what the car is on the current suspension, which I'm fairly sure is lowering springs and some stock struts, as opposed to the HSD coilovers that we're going to install here. Just kind of subtly probably see how I'm bouncing around. Very bouncy ride. It's not a bad setup, but the coilovers, the HSD coilovers, are going to be much, much nicer. Okay guys, this is the car's current ride height. Like I said, I'm fairly sure I put it on lowering springs before. Looks good. Needs to be a little bit lower. Joel said he wanted it just about on the tire, so looks like we got a little ways to go. Put some HSDs on it. We'll see how this turns out. Let's get into it. Y'all ready for this? You guys want to see these open? Look at that, it actually worked. Okay, so here we have the front HSD coilovers with what looks like some sort of alternative lower mount. I'm not sure if I'm going to need it or not. We'll look into the instructions there in a bit. Left and right, you have the coilover spanners, some Allen keys, and some adjustable finger adjustable knobs on the top. And then for the rear, these cars have a separate spring that sits on one of the rear control arms, and then this actually mounts to a different control arm. So sleeves there, they'll go over, thread onto this, and we'll adjust from there. Locking collars on the bottom, obviously locking collars. What do you guys think? Nice units, huh? Okay guys, let's take a look at these taillights and then we'll get the car up and see what we're going to need to get this job done. Did we do it again? There we go. So I've been told these are some sequential taillights. Probably take a little bit of wiring up. Came with a whole kit here. Spare goodies. So all this is going on here. Let's hop into it. Okay, Focklers, I'm gonna show you what, holy shit. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys what I would do, what I'm gonna do to take the suspension off. So we'll start with the rear here. So the rear, like I said, they both sit on the rear control arm, the spring and the strut. So the strut up there is 2 bolts, like 13 or 14 mils, and then 1 main bolt at the bottom. So that's where this sleeve is gonna go, the tube with the, or no, just the tube, sorry. And then the spring and the adjuster coil is going to go on this side. So I'm thinking we're going to take off this rear lower link, sway bar end link, and probably the, actually no, never mind. We're gonna leave this stuff alone. We might still take the sway link off so we can get a little bit more droop out of it. We're going to take that. The bolt for the lower strut mount out and the bolt for the spindle out. And it should come down how we're going to need it. We're going to do the same on this side. These 2 bolts out. The sway link out, and it should droop enough we can get the new spring in there and the new strut in there. The strut is the lower bolt and 2 top bolts. Super simple for the rear. In the front, as you can see, is 3 top bolts and 2 bottom bolts that connect to the spindle. Like I said, I'm not sure if we're going to use the alternate lower brackets or not, but we're going to find out here. So, those 2 bolts there, nut 1, nut 2. Take those off. Obviously going to have to remove the sway end link at the top. And then there's 3 bolts up there at the top. You can see the bottom of the bolt heads. So we'll have to pop the hood and going from the top on those ones. Is, like I said, 3 nuts. Fairly simple. The longest time this is going to take is adjusting everything to try to get it set to where Joel wants it. So let's see what we can do. I'm just going to time lapse you guys through this because it's going to take forever, but let's go. Okay, before we get too deep here, said I would show you guys the top 3 bolts. 1, 2, 3. You're probably going to take this whole strut tower bar off. Yeah, it looks like that's the single nut. So that is the 3 bolts for the top. Sway bar end link bolt, 1, 2 spindle bolts, and that's done now. So let's get into it, guys. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, got the sway bar end link off. Didn't notice till now, but we also got the brake line bolted on there. That's a 12 mil bolt there. There she is. So we'll get that off. Then we'll get the 2 main bolts off of the spindle, just the top, and she's basically out. Let's get into it. Whew. Well, that took about 20 seconds in time lapse. Just kidding, that was a little while. Okay, so we are officially suspensionless here. So there's the spindle, there's the old stock strut with the lowering spring. So once you get these things off, bring it over. Set them up next to the new ones, right? This is where we can figure out if we're going to use that alternative base or not. Yep, looks like we're going to have to. So, see how we have a bolt here. Bolt slot, that was for the brake cable right there. no brake cable spot on that side. There is one on that side, but so you see where the sway bar mount is? Look at on the factory one. It's off to behind it and off to the right. So if you look at this one will set it up behind and off to the right as well. But we need it to match, right? So there's our bolt hole for the brake line. We match there. And there is the ear for the sway bar end link. So we're gonna have to go ahead and swap these bottoms on instead of those ones. So we are using the alternative spindle mount. And then after we do that, we're gonna go ahead and line these up. Give this one a rough measure, give this one a rough measure, and go, let's say, an inch lower to start. Once we get that set up, we'll measure it and do the same to the left side. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so I got the stock one up there on my box. I measured from the bottom, the top of the strut, basically the bottom of the plate, because this all sits higher, right? So you want to measure from the part right here that sits flush up against the bottom of the body to the bottom of the strut entirely. And it was 21 inches, just under 21 inches. So like I said, I'm going to set this one up. I already have set this one up. This one is just under 20 instead of 21. So we're going to go ahead and switch the spindle mount on this one to this. This is going to be the driver's side, and we're going to set this one up to 20, just under 20 inches as well. So let's get into that. Okay, and the reason we start with a base number, set up both to a base number, is just so we know where we're starting, and then to adjust, we can adjust a certain amount of coils up or down to get the left and the right side sitting the exact same. And yeah, we can build on that. If we want to go lower, we go lower. If we want to go higher, we go higher. Right? So, like I said, let's go. Okay guys, now that both of these are set up at just under 20 inches, top to bottom, the left and the right, we're gonna go ahead, stuff them back in here. So, we're gonna start with the top 3 bolts. Always start with the top 3 bolts, make sure you can wiggle those 3 through. Just put them on loose, right? Just get a couple threads on the nuts, and then get down here and get those 2 bolts in, the 2 main spindle bolts, and then you can kind of adjust and do what you want from there. Okay? Let's go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have an HSD installed. Bottom's tight. Make sure when you tighten these 2 bolts up, you push in on the brakes so it sets it up with as much positive camber as possible. I think it's positive camber. So I'm just gonna tighten up those 3 bolts from the top. Trick tip, just leave the sway bar end link off for right now, as well as this, because if we're gonna wanna adjust the height, we're gonna have to unbolt and spin the sleeve up or down. So it's just easier if you don't have to re-bolt and unbolt everything 35 times, right? So trick tip, just leave it like that until you get everything on, set it down, pick your height, and adjust from there. Okay, let's continue. Okay, now we're on to the left side. Get this one in here. Get rid of this ugly thing, same thing, right? Take off the sway end link bolt, the bolt for the brakes. It's a 19 and a 17 millimeter for the spindle nut and bolt. And then the 3 bolts at the top, she'll drop out. Do the same thing, so we have 2 coilovers installed. Let's go. Okay guys, both fronts are on. Some parts are left loose so we can adjust. Two fronts. Bottom's tight, top's tight. No sway end links, no bolt for the brakes. Now, onto the rear. Like I said, those two bolts, sway end link, and it should drop enough we can get the spring out as well as the strut. Two 15, 16 mils at the top. That's it. Measure it, adjust, and then set these ones up. And that's it. Onto the tail light. Rear time, let's go. Okay, so we got the rear ones out here. Factory rear strut and spring. Now replacing it with the aftermarket HSD spring and the HSD strut. So we're gonna have to swap over the top mount, this piece here, over the top mount on there, and then we can start throwing it in. I actually took off the sway bar bushing mount itself right here, instead of doing that because it's how tight it is. Let it drop enough so we should be able to make this work. Fuck you. Fuck you. Okay, so new rear adjustable strut, coilover, whatever you want to call it. Obviously the old one. Got to swap this top mount, just one nut, easy to do. But first we're going to measure from here to the very bottom. Okay, we're going to take that measurement. We're going to try to go an inch lower than what that one is on this one, and then we'll do the same thing we did on the fronts. Match the opposite side, same length. Toss them in, as well as tossing the springs in, and start adjusting. See what we can do. Let's go. Okay guys, the first rear one is set up. Factory one measured out to be 22 inches long with the top mount. So we went ahead and made this one 21 inches with the top mount. So let's install it. Okay guys, another quick one. So the new springs come with a top mount with a rubber plate and nothing on the base. I'm gonna go ahead and steal the base. Original silicone isolator, I think they call them. We're gonna put it on this one, so then there's no squeaky, no bouncy, because it's rubber on top and the bottom. So this is the bottom, sits in the control arm, that's the top, sits in the body. Go ahead and install this first. You can actually adjust it down and then adjust it back up if you want to make it easier to get in. And then we'll go ahead and put the strut on. That's the other side, the one that's already put together. Yeah, bolt it all up and get on the other side. Okay guys, all the old stuff is out. New shit is in. Got HSDs everywhere. So next step is to set it down and start adjusting. Make sure that the car's the exact same height, front and rear, side to side. Okay, Focklers, we got it sitting on the ground. Looks like a monster truck. So, like I said, we started with 1 inch on the front and 1 inch on the back lower than what the factory stuff was. But you got to keep in mind the factory stuff is a lot softer and thus will compress a little bit easier. So we're going to take about another inch out of the back there and probably about 3 inches out of the front because it looks like a fucking mountain climber. So 3 inches out of the front, 1 inch out of the back. Let's go. Okay guys, to take out the 3 inches on the front, I'm just gonna put the measuring tape up to the bottom of the locking collar and measure it to the bottom of the strut. We're right about on 10 inches, just over 10 inches. So we're gonna take 3 off of that, so we wanna be just over 7 inches. Same on the other side. Okay, round 2. Front's 3 inches lower, rear is 1 inch lower. See how it looks. Hope so, right? Okay. It's definitely a little lower than it was.
Oh yeah.
But is it low enough?
Oh buddy. That front. That's gonna rub. That.
I think I just can't go with it too.
Yeah. The front I wouldn't touch anymore.
Okay, Fockers, now that everything's set height-wise, we gotta go in there and lock up the locking collars against the spindle mount and against the actual dampening adjustment for the coilover. So those two, gotta lock up that back one locking collar against the actual height adjustment collar. So 1 in the back, 2 in the front. 1 and 2. Okay, the Audi kid finally shut the fuck up. So we're gonna get into installing some JunYan auto lamp manufactured sequential taillights into this Genesis. I think we gotta wire some shit up, I'm not sure. Factories. And of course it's a bunch of little 10 mils, 4 10 mils in a connector. Let's do it. Okay guys, stock taillights out. Moving on to putting the aftermarket one in. Gotta attach these foam backing plates, probably anti-vibe or whatever. And there's the aftermarket taillight. So same thing going back in, just 4 bolts, 1 plug in, and then you gotta plug in the resistor that comes with the kit to make it actually sequential taillight. Let's do it. Stalkers and the aftermarket ones. What do you guys think? Definitely cooler than the stock ones. Let's see if the sequential works. This thing looks sweet now. Definitely sitting a lot better than it was. I think he's gonna be happy. So he wanted it sitting on the tire. Well, what do you guys think? That's it, it's sitting on the tire. Taillights are pretty sweet. Sequentials, so they blink from the inside to the outside on the 4 bars. Sounds good at idle too. I think it's a little loud for me at full chat, but what a unit. You guys think it's sitting on the tire? I think so. You know what? The car is definitely not as bouncy anymore either. It kind of hits a bump and then smoothens out. Doesn't just continue to bounce and bounce and bounce like a bouncy castle or parents' waterbed or whatever. Sweet unit. I like it. One last look at the sequentials. Definitely cooler than the factory stuff. Anyway guys, I know it's something a little different from me. What do you guys think? Cool? You guys like the how-tos and the before and afters? You let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe too. So, that's all she wrote. The Jenny is done. Obviously Joel will have to come back in a couple weeks. We'll go over everything once it settles. Maybe stiffen it up a bit. Maybe raise it, maybe lower it, I don't know. We'll see how the kid's feeling. Anyway, sweet car. Stay tuned, lots more Berkeley's Garage stuff coming. Peace. Burnout. On the street though.
Yeah, okay.
One happy customer.